Today we have a brown belt on the show, Paul. We bust scoot towards each other like the filthy guard players that we are. Paul comes up on top, and if this were a tournament, he would receive 2 points. Immediately he starts backing up and basically sweeps himself, but why? In my guard, I'm always trying to pull my opponents forward, to get underneath them for leg locks, back takes, or whatever presents itself. When you roll with me a lot, you kinda learn what I'm trying to do. Paul backs up to prevent being pulled forward, but a bit too much as I can easily just push him over. As I come up on top, I'm searching for an underhook. I want to use it to pin Paul's shoulders to the mat. Paul keeps his elbows tight to prevent it, but he leaves his head open and I use his head instead to pin his shoulders. If he would have positioned his left arm on the inside of my right arm, then he could have prevented head control. This shows really well why I grabbed his head. Look, I start flattening him out. I want him pinned on his back, not on his side. On his side, he can more easily defend. As I flatten him out, I start sliding over top of his knees to mount. The problem is I was only able to fully pin his shoulders and his hips are still able to rotate to the side. His hips are facing my ankle and this allows him to hook onto my ankle and position me back in his guard. I've regressed into his quarter guard and he's trying to make me regress even more by pushing my knee back between his legs into half guard. So I act fast and use what's available. My left knee comes through for a knee slide. Again, my priority is to pin. Everything I'm doing is to keep his shoulders glued to the mat and his hips glued to the mat. However, I'm not doing as good of a job as I would like to. So rather than trying to keep him pinned and attack from top position, I take advantage of the back exposure created by the lack of the pin. I attempt a rolling back attack and my goal is to either take the back or enter the truck. To do either of those, I need to lift Paul's hips up. I'm trying to use my feet so I can push and move his hips. I want either his upper leg or his hips themselves in my lap. That's how you gain substantial control over a part of your opponent's body with your hips. You position that body part in your lap. I'm trying to get his hips in my lap with me on top for mount. But instead I get his hips in my lap from the bottom, which is close guard. He won that scramble by getting his hips higher than mine. I'm controlling his hips with mine by having them in my lap. I want to do the same thing to his shoulders, so I quickly lift them up, but Paul hides his elbow behind me in time to prevent the armbar. In your guard, you need to control your opponent's mobility, especially their hip mobility, which is why I have my right foot blocking his hips in case he tries to knee slide. I then frame on him to make space and increase my mobility. Again, it looks like Paul is a bit too worried about being pulled forward. He makes too much space and I wrestle up. I put my forehead on him as I do to ensure that he can't guillotine me as I come up on top. I have a body lock on him, which means my arms are tied up and I can only utilize my legs to help me pass. Initially, I try to backstep, but I can't generate enough distance to clear his legs. So instead I work to get over his legs, over his knees specifically. Look how he positions his elbow to his hip, closing off access to his hips. That's where I want to get inside. I want to get his hips fully in my lap. I can make that happen if I can get my left leg under his left leg. That's why he's keeping his legs so tight to the mat. That's the objective right now, and it's more important than any specific technique. I go over these objectives and concepts in my Jiu-Jitsu theory course. I highly recommend that you pick it up. I'm having trouble achieving my objective, and just like from close guard, when I tried to go from his hips in my lap to his shoulder in my lap, that's what I'm trying to do now. But his frame is stopping me from advancing higher. He eventually puts me back in quarter guard, and again I knee slide to free my ankle and repass his guard.
And now a big thank you from today's sponsor, Elements. Is one of your New Year's resolutions to train more and improve more in Jiu-Jitsu? If you want to improve more on the mats, you need to spend more time on the mats. You're ready to push yourself. But improving isn't just about pushing yourself, it's also about recovery. Because unless you recover properly, especially when it comes to nutrition, you will feel fatigued and muscle cramps will sideline you from your rolls. This often happens because of a lack of essential electrolytes, especially sodium. Which is why I've been drinking Elements, the ultimate electrolyte drink mix, that helps me both put in more mat time and train harder than ever before. Whether you're a beginner or have been in Jiu-Jitsu for a while, Elements' science-based formula of sodium, potassium, and magnesium can make all the difference in your recovery. Say goodbye to training fatigue and muscle cramps because Element has you covered. And here's the exciting part. Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any Element order. That's 8 single serving packets free with any Element order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/JordanTeaches. This deal is only available through my link. You must go to drinkelementc.com/JordanTeaches.
I pin his wrist to the mat, which separates his elbow from his body. Now I can attack it, but I can't get my right elbow to the crook of his neck between his ear and shoulder, which is what I would need for the Americana. But that's okay because I attack the armbar instead, and I do that by positioning his upper arm in my lap. This connects my hips to his shoulder. It anchors me there. Now that I'm anchored to his body, I just need to separate his wrist from his body. But the problem is, he has a rear naked choke style grip, anchoring his right wrist to his left bicep. If I just pull, I'll be pulling his wrist into my hamstring. My hamstring is in the way, so I take my leg off his head so he can't do that. I can take my leg off his head because I have control of his hips with my right arm. If I didn't, then he would just come up on top, and I'd lose the armbar. He attempts to secure it again, but before he does, I pull it out, and that's all she wrote. We start again and again. Paul is keeping his weight far back to avoid me pulling him forward. I use this to my advantage and snatch up his neck. Paul has my leg, and that controls my mobility. I need to free it so I can move. Once I free myself, I can freely move my hips and take top position. I want to smash him down, but he's doing a good job making space, so I decide to bail out and pass from the outside instead. I hit a quick X pass, which is basically just a back step. I initially go to knee on belly so I can keep control of him before dropping down. Passing from the outside, there's always a bit more risk of a scramble, and scrambles occur due to lack of control. My goal right now is to separate Paul's elbow from his body so I can attack his arm, but I'm having trouble doing so on my knees, so I pop back up to knee on belly. Now I force my arm underneath his elbow and have separation of his elbow from his body. I now have what I need to attack his arm, and my choices are basically armbar or Kimura, and I choose Kimura because it's a bit more exciting for YouTube than an armbar. The thing is, it's definitely hard to put someone's arm behind their back, and especially when they're good at Jiu-Jitsu. So I swing my leg over to the other side of his body so I can use my hamstring to help pull out his arm. I bump him in the head a little bit, so sorry Paul. My hamstring pushes as my arms pull. This Kimura grip break is in my Kimura Trap Mastery Instructional, so if you want to learn that and other cool stuff, then make sure to pick it up. And let me know what position or technique that you're working on, and I can see if I can incorporate it into the next rolling commentary. This is a pretty cool sweep. Paul has his weight a bit too far off of me, and I use my butterfly hook to move Paul over to the side as I come up to my knees. Right away, I tripod pass. And one reason I love tripod passing is that it feels like they don't have a guard. It's a very controlling position to pass from. I eventually backstep into a leg entanglement. And this is another good example of positioning your opponent in your lap. I have control of his hips because I have his upper leg in my lap, which is attached to his hips. He doesn't want that, which is why he's using his right shin as a frame to make space. My legs hugging his leg anchors my hips to his hips. Now I just need to control his ankle and apply braking mechanics. And just like the armbar where I needed to separate his wrist from the rest of his body, I need to do the same with his ankle, as he's using his other foot to help defend. The rest of the roll is more the same. I appreciate you watching. If you're still here, please leave a comment or a fist bump, and I'll see you guys next time.